As I have been asked to speak on, to share a little on the situation of media, I think this is a very crucial question, particularly in the pandemic, because every time the information becomes a very, very crucial uh, issue or a factor in how people respond. And I think what distinguishes societies which have responded well to those who have not responded so well is specifically a media issue. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, yes. We can hear you well.
Okay, yeah. Okay, fine. So, I just to illustrate, you will find that the communications, a lot of the problem happened because China refused to properly share the information or minimize the quality of the information or suppress the range of problems that was being revealed, to them as a result of the outbreak. So, information and media related in aspects become a very, very important part of the pandemic response for the government as well as for the mainstream media. Now, to come to the positive side of that is that the New Zealand Prime Minister has been given a lot of praise for the way in which she dealt with the issue, because they had a specific communication strategy to take up the to communicate what has to be done to get the public to cooperate. So they had a particular shade of yellow which they used for all COVID related aspects of announcements, and it was cutting across all the service providers, whether it is health or police or administration or travel. So there was a very good coordination because of the coordinated effort. And more than that, the New Zealand Prime Minister was able to communicate in a very down to earth manner, plus being very upfront with sharing information. It is the exact opposite of what happened, say, for instance, in the US, where the head of state was giving mixed signals. In India also, there were quite a few mixed signals, and basically decisions were taken without communicating with the populations. And so with a very, very short notice on the one hand. On the other hand, for non-emergency or non-important issues, media was used extensively by the government. So it has been an exercise in the it's a case study of how media's use is very, very crucial for public safety and health. And and governments have to really go back to the drawing board and learn how this is done. Now this is in terms of governments. Now to come to mainstream media. In India in particular, mainstream media has played a very important, if not very positive role in the way the country is being governed. In recent years, as you know, there has been a massive co-option of mainstream media, and if at all any information is shared, it is by the digital media, specifically the non-mainstream media, that is Facebook, Instagram, people writing blogs, and net domains which are newly started to give information to the public. So the mainstream media has also faced some fallout as a result of the pandemic. One is the loss of ad revenue as the businesses and services shut down. Transports, hotel, travel, all these shut down. The ad revenue went down very, very seriously, except perhaps digital ads. And then also many so the only main spend came from the government and from corporate advertisers. So this has really caused a lot of confusion. I'm a part of a media women's in media group, and they have reported across the country many newspapers, very major old newspapers also, quickly shut down certain departments, and there's been massive job losses. So freelance journalists and writers have lost income also. I know of, net domains which use a lot of freelancers. They've also stopped taking submissions from freelancers, and they have been only making their staff writers do the writing of their stories. So this has been one side. On the other hand, because of lockdown, reporters have not been able to go out into the field in to a great extent, particularly the electronic media. The cameras, the video cameras have not been allowed to go into these areas. And we have very little paka information on what is actually happening in lockdown areas. And so this has been another development. Then also, uh, journalists are reporting a kind of a severe stress because they're all, many of them are working from home, and also the kind of stories, the negativity that is happening, that across the world people are dying. There are so many reports of poor governance, less positive stories, and particularly in India, it's really been harrowing for them. So many of them are reporting, for instance, mental stress, anxiety, and so on. And women, particularly, a lot of, as you know, many of the journalists are young women of in recent years. So there has been an impact on the mental health, of the quality of their working lives, and the mental health also they are reporting. Then I think apart from the direct impact of loss of ad revenue, yeah, managements have also tried to use this opportunity to sack a large number of even senior journalists. So this has been the trend. Now, that is on the one hand. On the other hand, I think media reports on, say, for instance, testing, giving updates on the medical, I mean, the status of research work that is happening, the vaccine trials. This is very crucial. It's very important for public to know about what is happening. And there has been at least one instance recorded in the Indian Express, one article, a science journalist wrote an article. Within 24 hours, it was taken down, and the Wire wrote a critical piece on that, saying, "How come if a science reporter's article is taken down from the net? So we should be worrying more than about just the pandemic, but about what gets reported and why." Because that article was critical about the lack of testing and the way in which testing was being handled. Because as you know, in a pandemic, testing becomes very important. If it's an infectious epidemic or pandemic, then how testing is done and the outcomes of the test becomes very crucial information for the public, for public good. And so it is a very crucial aspect. So I think the takeaway for me has been two or three. One is that governments are bound to become very overcautious about what gets shared about themselves, uh, on the, and if the government has been less than adequate in its response, then it is likely to use a suppressive approach. That has been contrasted, for instance, by the Kerala experience, where I think the media and the government have collaborated with the grassroots level, service providers, etc. I think there has been a lot of good use of information, for instance, contact tracing and so on. So I think it cuts both. Oh, and there's another important point, and that is about the digital security issue. And, that linked with the kind of behaviors that are being shown in the society against, for instance, frontline medical workers, sanitation workers, as well as infected individuals. A kind of social, uh, what to say, ostracizing of these people is happening, and it has thrown into sharp relief the existing fault lines of the Indian society. And so doctors, nurses, cleaning workers, hospital workers have not been allowed, for instance, by some societies to enter their houses, or their families have been, or if there's been an infected person, that family has been ostracized. So these kind of issues have taken place. In such a context, that Arogya Setu app, which the government is promoting, and now which is, it seems at least 49 companies have insisted upon downloading that onto your phone, on the one, for for you to be able to go to work on the one hand, and on the other hand, police in Noida have also insisted that unless the person carries the Arogya Setu app downloaded on their phone, they will be arrested. If they don't carry it, then they will be arrested. So, but what has been the benefit of having the Arogya Setu app? The benefits aside, a person has supposing I have my phone has the say app, and it indicates that somebody around me is having an infection, and immediately I become very suspicious. It affects my relationship with, if I'm in a public place, somebody the app senses that somebody has an infection, and immediately imagine what is private to that individual becomes knowledge to me, and I can use it in any way. I had an experience. I had though not directly about Setu itself, I had a very sad information shared by a friend of mine. She's 60 years old, has completely white hair. She was waiting in the queue in front of a mall to make some purchases. She was a single lady, and then till she came up to the door, nobody stopped her. But when she came to the door, the security fellow asked, "How old are you?" She said, 60. "Get out from here. You're not supposed to be here." Extremely rude reaction. When she objected and said she just needs to buy some things, a mob gathered and almost lynched the lady. So if somebody around me is found to be infected, I can immediately raise an alarm and create such a problem for anyone who happens to be infected around me, and they may be in fact asymptomatic. They themselves might not know. So there are many horrible possibilities as a result of this information. So it can be weaponized against a vulnerable person. So I feel that it's a huge concern. And also, as you all know, at least two hackers, one ethical hacker hacked it very promptly and put it out on Twitter. And in Bangalore, another techie totally subverted and was able to hack it and carry it on his phone without of any of you're supposed to register and supposed to give your phone number and so many other details before it becomes active. He was able to bypass all that and still carry it, and it kept showing him in the green. So what's the point of an Arogya Setu app if it has more downsides than positives, and so therefore this information that is being shared by governments or by insisted upon in response as a valid COVID response has to be really seriously vetted for whether they're harmful or positive, have a positive impact. So I would say that the use of media or the abuse of media becomes a very crucial aspect when in a context of any pandemic, and I would say specifically in the case of this kind of a pandemic called COVID-19. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cynthia. You explained well how the media itself is a casualty. We have not received the print versions of the many newspapers till recently.
Correct.
Yeah, whole space is occupied by the TV news, and
yes.
the TV news has been totally controlled by the particular group and particular interest.
Yes.
There was a competition among the TV groups to give the picture, the rosy picture of the Prime Minister's packages, and they are also quite involved in.
Can't hear you, sir. Can you speak up a little?
They have also targeted particular communities to
yes,
find.
Correct. I did not even mention that.
Yeah, to underline the government war attributes, because war is not possible without an enemy. So they enemy in that thing. So, but important is that also the couple of media persons. I remember one person in Agra from Jagran. He died because of the COVID, and the print staff were also admitted in Ahmedabad. But
Actually, even in I think Chennai, there was one channel, news channel, Satyam TV, which in which one person, one anchor was found positive. Then suddenly 17 people were all, they had I think 17 media staff, and so then they closed down the building, and you were only using video editing and remote news sharing. So yeah, the vulnerability of the media personnel to the infection is also a point to be noted. Thank you, sir.
So one thing is that the media model, the market-driven model, is also been exposed by the COVID.
Completely exposed. Yes.
Yeah, and the long run, I think how the media. But very important point, the positive things what the Cynthia has mentioned, we should take a note of it. The media and the Kerala government model in encouraging the community to be part of the whole process of the COVID response. It's very different than the central government, which is very overcautious in the approach. So that's I think good to pick it up.